all the amazing places I've gone. I'm not a scientist. We do some homework, though, and research, and get a sense of evidence, whether it's legitimate or not. But here it is. Biggest objection. People just go right to Genesis 1. If you can't resolve this, they say, we're going to scrap the Bible. So, of no value, especially scientifically. Because it says, God created the heavens and the earth, and there was light. Wow. And then, what was it, day 4? Days later, he created the light-bearing bodies. Well, that's not scientific. Well, neither is the evolutionist idea of 8 billion year old life. And if God is creator, there is a tremendous amount of complexity involved in design that points to a creator. Even the evolutionists talk about a God particle. I don't know why they did that. Maybe it was sarcastic. If there's an unexplained capacity for the universe to duplicate itself from nothing to something in a burst, well, that's God. Okay, let's go with that. Let's not give a name to him, but we give a credit to that idea. And why couldn't God, if he created the heavens and the earth, why couldn't he just create light? It doesn't have to come from anything. Well, yeah, okay. So then we have some scientific ideas. Well, how did the light get to Earth billions of years ago? Because we don't know that's billions of years of time travel reference to the Earth. So we have, well, what about if the Earth is in the center of the universe? A lot of gravity affects the passage of time a lot quicker if it's in the center of the universe. Let's take a look at that. So Genesis chapter 1. Genesis 1. 1.HCM. And we're looking at that point from this study on Genesis chapter 1. A new creationist cosmology. Actually, these are theories like the Riemann space theory, which we went into yesterday a little bit. It has a lot of problems to it. It doesn't quite answer the questions. But a new creationist cosmology based on general relativity. Nevertheless, the speed of light decay theory stimulated much thinking about the issues. Creationist physicist Dr. Russell Humphreys says that he spent a year on and off trying to get the declining C theory to work, the speed of light declining, but without success. However, in the process, he was inspired to develop a new creationist cosmology, which appears to solve the problem of the apparent conflict with the Bible's clear, authoritative teaching of a recent creation. This new cosmology, because if light took billions of years to go from one point of space to the Earth, then what about recent creation? Creation is only thousands of years old. Then something existed before. No. So there's a problem here. The new cosmology is proposed as a creationist alternative to the Big Bang theory. It passed peer review by qualifying reviewers of the 1994 Pittsburgh International Conference on Creationism. Young Earth creationists have been cautious about the model, which is not surprising with such an apparently radical departure from orthodoxy, from Christian orthodoxy. But Humphreys has addressed the problem raised. Believers in an old universe and the Big Bang have vigorously opposed the new cosmology and claim to have found flaws in it. However, Humphreys has been able to defend his model as well as develop it further. The debate will no doubt continue. All right. I'm in trouble. Continue. There it is. The debate will no doubt continue. This sort of development in which one creationist theory, speed of light, c-decay, is overtaken by another is a healthy aspect of science. The basic biblical framework is non-negotiable as opposed to the changing views and models of fallible people seeking to understand the data within that framework. Evolutionists also often change their ideas on exactly how things have made themselves, but never whether they did. So there's always a question of, we still have a mystery about this. A clue. Let us briefly give a hint as to how the new cosmology seems to solve the starlight problem, before explaining some preliminary items in a little more detail. Consider that the time taken for something to travel a given distance is the distance divided by the speed it is traveling, that is, time, equals distance divided by speed. When this is applied to light from distant stars, the time calculates out to be millions of years. So much for the young Earth creation then. Well, let's see. Some have sought to challenge the distances, but this is a very unlikely answer. Astronomers use many different methods to measure the distances, and no informed creationist astronomer would claim that any errors would be so vast that billions of light years could be reduced to thousands, for example. There is good evidence that our own Milky Way galaxy is 100,000 light years across, at the speed of light. If the speed of light has not changed, the only thing left untouched in the equation is time itself. Aha! See, if you ignore a possibility, a plausibility, you're not going to come up with good evidence. You're just going to push your own theories despite the lack of evidence. In fact, Einstein's relativity theories have been telling the world for decades that time is not a constant. Two things are believed with experimental support to distort time in relativity theory. One is speed and the other is gravity. Einstein's general theory of relativity, the best theory of gravity we have here at present, indicates that gravity distorts time. This effect has been measured experimentally many times. Clocks at the top of tall buildings where gravity is slightly less run faster than those at the bottom, just as predicted by the equations of general relativity. When the concentration of matter is very large or dense enough, the gravitational distortion can be so immense that even light cannot escape. It's like a white hole. The equations of general relativity show that at the invisible boundary surrounding such a concentration of matter, called the event horizon, the point at which light rays trying to escape the enormous pull of gravity and bend back on themselves, time literally stands still. I didn't say it. Einstein's theory of relativity. Using different assumptions, Dr. Humphreys' new creationist cosmology literally falls out of the equations of GR so long as one assumes that the universe has a boundary. In other words, that it has a center and an edge, and that if you were to travel off into space, you would eventually come to a place beyond which there was no more matter. In this cosmology, the Earth is near the center, as it appears to be as we look out into space. Don't worry about the Milky Way. It's all of space. This might sound like common sense, as indeed it is, but all modern secular Big Bang cosmologies deny this, without any proof. That is, they make arbitrary assumptions without any scientific necessity that the universe has no boundaries, no edge, and no center. In this assumed universe, every galaxy would be surrounded by galaxies spread evenly in all directions on a large enough scale, and so, therefore, all the net gravitational forces cancel out. Such is not the case, though, even as they observe it today. However, if the universe has boundaries, then there is a net gravitational effect toward the center. Clocks at the edge would be running at different rates to clocks on the Earth. In other words, it is no longer enough to say God made the universe in 6 days. He certainly did. But 6 days by which clock? If we say God's time, we miss the point that he is outside of time, seeing the end from the beginning. This appears to be observational evidence that the universe has expanded in the past, supported by the many phrases God uses in the Bible to tell us that at creation. He stretched it out. The heavens, he stretched out the heavens. And other verses say spread out. If the universe is not much bigger than we can observe, and if it was only 50 times smaller in the past than it is now, then scientific deduction, based on GR, means it has to have expanded out of a previous state in which it was surrounded by an event horizon, a condition known technically as a white hole, a black hole running in the reverse, something permitted by the equations of GR. So you have such a concentration of mass in the universe that time stops. Light doesn't even escape because the light is kept within the boundaries of the universe at that time. As matter passed out of this event horizon, this white hole, the horizon itself had to shrink eventually to nothing. Therefore, at one point, this Earth, relative to a point far away from it, would have been virtually frozen. An observer on Earth would not in any way feel different. Billions of years would be available in the frame of reference within which it is traveling in deep space, for light to reach the Earth and for stars to age, while less than one ordinary day is passing on Earth. This massive gravitational time dilation would seem to be a scientific inevitability if a bounded universe expanded significantly. In one sense, if observers on Earth at that particular time could have looked out and seen the speed with which light was moving toward them in out in space, it would have appeared as if it were traveling many times faster than the speed of light. The galaxies would also appear to be rotating faster. However, if an observer in deep space was out there amongst it all measuring the speed of light, to him it would still only be traveling at the speed of light. There is more detail of this new cosmology at layman's level in the book by Dr. Humphreys, Starlight and Time, which also includes reprints of his technical papers showing the equations. It's a good one. I enjoyed reading that. It's beyond me, over my head, but I get conclusions because he draws scientific conclusions that are beyond my capacity and then gives you something that the layman would be able to understand. It is fortunate that creationists did not invent such concepts such as gravitational time dilation, because they blame the Christians for that. But no, this is Einstein. Black and white holes, event horizons, and so on, or we would likely be accused of manipulating the data to solve the problem. Nobody's pointing fingers at Einstein, though. Evolutionists looked at Einstein and all. The interesting thing about this cosmology is that it is based upon mathematics and physics, totally accepted by all cosmologists, general relativity, and accepts, along with virtually all physicists, that there has been expansion in the past, though not from some imaginary tiny point. It requires no massaging. The results fall out so long as one abandons the arbitrary starting point which the Big Bangers use. They just make it up. The unbounded cosmos idea. There's no proof, which could be called what the experts don't tell you about the Big Bang. Of course, now the new stuff is that the Big Bang collapses and starts all over again out of nothing. Well, is there any evidence of that? How do you give evidence of nothing? This new cosmology seems to explain in one swoop all of the other observations used to support the Big Bang, including progressive red shift and the cosmic microwave background radiation, without compromising the data or the biblical records of a young Earth. Wow. Caution. While this is exciting news, all theories of fallible men, no matter how well they seem to fit the data, are subject to revision or abandonment in the light of future discoveries. What we can say is that at this point a plausible mechanism has been demonstrated with considerable observational and theoretical support. What if no one had ever thought of the possibility of gravitational time dilation? Many might have felt forced to agree with those scientists, including some Christians, that there was no possible solution. The vast ages are a fact, and the Bible must be reinterpreted and massaged or increasingly rejected, which is what happened until scientists got to be a little more scientific. Many have, in fact, been urging Christians to abandon the Bible's clear teaching of a recent creation because of these undeniable facts, which are now deniable. This reinterpretation also means having to accept that there were billions of years of death, disease, and bloodshed from Adam, thus eroding the creation fall restoration framework within which the gospel is presented in the Bible. You compound one erroneous thinking on top of another, and you get a building that's going to topple and fall as soon as somebody sensible comes along, like Einstein, who's been around for decades, and just go with what he's saying, because no one's questioning what he's saying. It's grand science to scientists, even though they don't apply a scientific point of view to the issue. However, even without this new idea, such an approach would still have been wrong-headed. The authority of the Bible should never be compromised as mankind's scientific proposals. One little previously unknown fact or one change in a starting assumption can drastically alter the whole picture so that what was fact is no longer so. This is worth remembering when dealing with those of other areas of difficulty which, despite the substantial evidence for Genesis creation, will still remain. Only God possesses infinite knowledge. By basing our scientific research on the assumption that His Word is true, instead of the assumption that it is wrong or irrelevant, our scientific theories are much more likely in the long run to become accurately representing reality. So, we've got footnotes and everything on this. Excellent study, Starlight and Time. There it is. Dr. Russell Humphreys, Starlight and Time. Green Forest, Master Books, 1994. And I think he's revised it up a little bit, but more information. The fact that both sun and moon are called light givers does not suggest that they are the same substance. One actually generates